And we.
All right, welcome everybody to our December installment of our literacy coaching session. Glad to have you here today. Teresa's asking people to put in the chat box your name, organization, and either the last movie you saw or the book you read. So we'll have you do that if you haven't already. And with that being said, I'm going to turn it over to Teresa, and I will kill my camera so I can finish my sandwich for lunch here. But Teresa, yell if you need me.
Okay. Well, hello, everyone. Welcome back to the third session of the year. I'm actually going to answer the question. The last movie that I actually saw was The Harder They Fall on Netflix with Idris Elba and Regina King. Very good movie. It's a very good movie if you haven't seen that on Netflix. We do have a fun-filled day with you today. Got some activities lined up for you. So let's go on and get into it. So today we are going to have some fun. Like I said before, I have some fun-filled activities for you. The pictures that I have here, if we were actually doing this in person, definitely would have you up moving around, definitely have you doing activities where you're actually doing this and going through the activity. That way, when you get back with your kids, you know how to troubleshoot the activity, you know how, oh, okay, this is how this goes, and so forth and so on. So continuing on. So just a little bit of housekeeping. Like I said, always encourage participation. If you haven't already, go ahead and add your name. And today you will be utilizing that chat box. Got some questions asked to ask you, some discussion that we're gonna have. And then again, everybody knows how to do this part. If you just need to step away, just make sure, be considerate of others and turn off your video and your sound. And again, if you're having that lunch, that is quite okay. So we're just gonna take a moment and step back, kind of step back a little bit to session 2, and kind of do a little bit of reflection on that. So in session 2, that was the best practices. We talked about integrating best practices. It was the embedded instruction, differentiated learning in content and delivery. If you could just take some time and list 3 to 4 takeaways or any aha moments that you actually got from that session, okay? And then the next step is to look at those takeaways and think about some ways that those can move your program forward. How can you move forward, use those in moving your program forward? So I'll just be quiet for a moment and allow for you to reflect on that. Okay. Hopefully you have at least 1 or 2 on your paper at least. Anybody care to share? Either Tara or Andrea care to share? Even Crystal, you can jump in if you want to as well.
I just liked being able to do the quick little academic reviews, so to speak, with like making the words and those kind of things in a quick, fun way where the kids are still actually practicing what they're learning in school without it being like a drill and kill type activity. So having the academic piece integrated in.
Okay. Thank you. And how could that move, taking that takeaway, how could that move program forward?
Right now, we have some people that just focus on doing arts and crafts and no academic purpose behind it. So even just having a warm up with making some words or something along that lines, just getting a little bit of extra learning in, not just the fun, fluffy stuff.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. How about you, Andrea?
I don't really have a whole lot. I still struggle almost every day trying to figure out how to get literacy into our program.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I'm still working on it.
Okay, no, not a problem.
Yeah.
Not a problem at all. Mm-hmm. Crystal, did you want to chime in, or are we able to move forward?
I think we can move forward. I guess I just enjoy the fact that the activities, all of the activities that you come up with, Teresa, I think are designed for ease of implementation and maximum fun, while you also have that kind of under the radar learning. Sorry, under the radar learning.
Okay, thank you. All right. Moving forward. So I didn't put up an agenda, but like I said before, this is going to be just having fun activities, activities that you can go back to your program and implement, whether you implement the activities that are here or whether as you're sitting there, you're having aha moments and like, oh, hey, we could do it this way, or hey, we could do it that way. Okay, so getting started with the first activity, this is that writing a story. I said that there was actually 2 parts to this. So we're actually going to go through the second part. The first part was that you just had kids, you had the 2 pictures, and you had kids writing a story based on those 2 pictures. Okay, this part's going to come in after you've done that for a while, and kids are kind of at ease and sitting down and writing a story. Now, the second part is, and this is again grades 3 through 12th grade, is that you're going to come in and you're going to start with a vocabulary builder. And the vocabulary builder is focused on parts of a story. Now, at these levels, kids already know this information. So you're just reinforcing what they already know. So you're going to talk about characters, setting, plot, conflict, and resolution. And you could do this in a number of ways. You can create a word wall where it's the word, the definition, the sentence, and examples, and the kids do this. You don't necessarily have to do this. You can do word webs, which this web right here is called a word web, where you have the word and then you branch off and have your definitions and come up with other definition or examples to those definitions. And then you have any type of graphic organizer, anything with graphic organizers. Kids love graphic organizers, especially if it's presented in a fun way. And then you can just simply be creative of how you want to introduce those words, how you want to do your vocabulary building. The applied learning to this piece is that now they're going to write a story and they're going to go back and identify the parts in their story. So you could do this a number of ways again. So you could do this on an individual level where you start off where they write their story and then they have to go in and identify the parts to their story. Or you can have it in a group format, like partners, where they switch papers with their partner and then they go through and identify the parts in their partner's story. So there's a number of ways that that can be done. And then I always do connection activities because that's what's really gonna get your activity actually ingrained in kids. It helps retain information, and it also builds that bridge between what you're doing at your program to their world. So the connection activity would be, now we could talk about movies. We could have discussion about movies and TV shows and books. We could talk about analyzing, taking a TV show that the kids watch who knows, Ed, Ed, and Eddie, and saying, okay, what are the characters? What is the plot? Hey, what's the conflict or resolution in this cartoon that you're watching? Like I said, now it's building that connection. Now they're able to go, oh, when they sit down and watch TV, they're going, oh, hey, I know that. That's a plot right there. Oh, that's a conflict. Okay, so just building that, making those connections. And then the last piece of this is it benefits the program. And the benefit that programs get in doing this is it's an informal assessment. It allows for you to gauge the level of kids' writing, how they spell. You may have kids that actually struggle with spelling. Once you do this over a length of time, their spelling starts to improve. And then it gauges their communication. How are they communicating? How well do they communicate? And then as you're doing this, and like I said, this does not have to be an activity that is done every day. You can do this whenever. This could be done throughout the whole entire school year. But the improvement that you would see is in their writing structure, their spelling, because pretty soon you'll start getting into their spelling. They'll start asking words to be spelled. And then it also builds their confidence in writing. Okay. Any questions on this writing the story? Like I said, there's two parts to it. Any questions? Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and move on. And feel free to use the chat box if you need to. Okay, the next activity is a compare and contrast. And some of you had stated at the beginning that you had some ideas about compare and contrast. We all know that compare and contrast can be done with all ages, kindergarten through 12th grade. Today, the way that I am presenting is, so the delivery of the content, as well as what I'm asking kids to do, is at a 3rd grade on up level. Okay, I'll say that again. What I'm asking kids to do, so the skill sets that I'm asking from the kids and the way that I'm delivering this information is on a 3rd grade on up level. Okay, because again, we could do compare and contrast with our younger kids with the K through 2nd grade, but what I'm asking, what we're doing is going to be a little bit higher. So always start with vocabulary building. I love vocabulary builders, as you could tell. And you'll see throughout the whole sessions that I love vocabulary building. Is compare and contrast, or you can use similarities and differences. And just you're having that discussion, you're giving the definition, giving examples. And when you get to this part, staff really probably does not have to put much effort to this. You allow for the kids to do this. You just open up the discussion. Have this guided discussions about these words. And we want to stick with compare and contrast or similarities and differences, because when they start taking those Iowa tests, they're going to see those words. If they're taking the ACTs and the, excuse me, I'm sorry, you know, those tests that they're taking and to get into college, they're going to see these words. So this allows for them to build that familiarity with the words. The format that compare and contrast is doing in this particular activity is we will do book to movie. You could do movie to movie, character to character, or book to book. A lot of times I see teachers do the book to movie and the character to character. That's why they're underlined, because that's usually the two biggest formats that are used. So like book to movie would be like the Lorax, Matilda, Fault in Our Stars, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. And then like character to character would be like Harry Potter, Percy Jackson, Artemis Fowl. You can add in some other characters. I mean, we could go on, the list can go on and on. The skill sets that you will be teaching as well as reinforcing, and there's going to be a number of skill sets. I just chose these 3. It's definitely critical thinking, communication, and relationship, and if you want to use the big word, interpersonal skills. okay? Because as you're doing these activities, you're gonna be in conversation. Kids are gonna have to respect each other's thoughts and ideas. The critical thinking is you're asking questions that are gonna require them to think kind of in a high order, as they call high order thinking skills. And then to communicate, how are they communicating? Whether you're asking them to write it down or whether they're doing an oral communication, okay? Any questions on this right here, this compare and contrast? Okay. So the next slide that I have is 3 activities. The first activity we're actually going to do, have participation with that activity. And then the last 2 activities we are going to, of the compare and contrast, I'll just do a walkthrough of those activities. So the first activity is the Lorax. So you would actually read the book and then you would watch the movie. So we're actually going to listen to the story, the Lorax. At certain places, I will be pausing it and then asking some, checking for understanding questions and asking some high order questions. And then we'll come back and then I will talk about the movie question. So let me get to that. Let me know.
By Dr. Seuss. At the far end of town, where the grickle grass grows, and the wind smells slow and sour when it blows, and no birds ever sing excepting old crows, is the street of the lifted Lorax. And deep in that grickle grass, some people say, if you look deep enough, you can still see today, where the Lorax once stood just as long as it could, before somebody lifted the Lorax away. What was the Lorax? And why was it there? And why was it lifted and taken somewhere? From the far end of town where the grickle grass grows, the old Onceler still lives there. Ask him. He knows. You won't see the Onceler. Don't knock at his door. He stays in his lurkum at the top of his store. He lurks in his lurkum, cold under the roof, where he makes his own clothes out of Miff, Mufford, and Moof. And on special dank midnights in August, he peeks out of the shutters. Sometimes he speaks and tells how the Lorax got lifted away. He'll tell you, perhaps, if you're willing to pay. On the end of a rope, he lets down a tin pail, and you have to toss in 15 cents and a nail, as well as the shell of a great-great-great-grandfather snail. Then he pulls up the pail, makes a most careful count, to see if you've paid him the proper amount. Then he hides what you've paid him away in his snub, in his secret strange hole, in his grovelous glove. Then he grunts,
I will call you by whisper, my phone, for the secrets I tell you are for your ears alone.
Down comes the whisper-mophone to your ear, and the old Onceler's whispers are not very clear, since they have to come down through a snurgly hose, and he sounds as if he had smallish bees up his nose.
Now I'll tell you,
he says with his teeth sounding gray,
how the Lorax got lifted and taken away. It all started way back, such a long, long time back. Way back in the days when the grass was still green, and the pond was still wet, and the clouds were still clean, and the song of the Swanee swans rang out in space, one morning I came to this glorious place, and I first saw the trees, the truffula trees, the bright-colored tufts of the truffula trees, mile after mile in the fresh morning breeze. And under the trees I saw brown barbaloots, frisking about in their barbaloot suits, as they played in the shade and ate truffula fruits. From the ripulous pond came the comfortable sound of the humming fish humming while splashing around. But those trees, those truffula trees, all my life I'd been searching for trees such as these. The touch of their tufts was much softer than silk, and they had the sweet smell of fresh butterfly milk. I felt a great leaping of joy in my heart. I knew just what to do. I unloaded my cart. In no time at all, I had built a small shop. Then I chopped down a truffula tree with one chop. and with great skillful skill and with great speedy speed, I took the soft tuft, and I knitted a thneed. The instant I'd finished, I heard a gazump. I looked, I saw something pop out of the stump of the tree I'd chopped down. It was sort of a man. Describe him? That's hard. I don't know if I can. He was shortish, and oldish, and brownish, and mossy, and he spoke with a voice that was sharpish and bossy.
Mister,
He said with a sawdusty sneeze.
I am the Lorax. I speak for the trees.
He was very upset as he shouted and puffed.
What's that thing you've made out of my truffle a tuft?
Look, Lorax, I said, there's no cause for alarm. I chopped just one tree. I am doing no harm. I'm being quite useful. This thing is a thneed. A thneed's a fine something that all people need. It's a shirt, it's a sock, it's a glove, it's a hat. But it has other uses, yes,
Okay,
far beyond that.
Stop it there.
But
I would actually play it a little bit more, but just some questions. Where could this story have taken place? You can just shout it out since there's only a small group. Where could this story have taken place? Yes, Tara?
The kids would probably say maybe a forest, a pretend forest, because it doesn't look like a real one.
Okay. And then the next question that you would ask is, so who could the Lorax represent? Or who could the Onceler represent? So now we're getting into those high order thinking skills where now kids have to kind of formulate that just by the, just by the information, by the book that is the story that's being read. You can guide them if you want to. So like the Lorax could represent the nature, could represent the animals. The Onceler represents people, could represent greed. Gotta move this a little forward. Okay, then we're gonna go to the second part. Let's see, move this a little forward here. Listen more.
broke.
Onceler, you're making such smogulous smoke. My poor Swami Swans, why they can't sing a note. No one can sing who has smog in his throat. And so, please pardon my cough, they cannot live here, so I'm sending them off. Where will they go? I don't hopefully know. They may fly for a month or a year to escape the smog you've smogged up around here. What's more,
Snapped the Lorax. His dander was up.
let me say a few words about Gluppity Glup. Your machinery chugs on day and night without stop, making Gluppity Glup also sloppity slop. And what do you do with this leftover goo? I'll show you, you dirty old oncer man, you. You're glumping the pond where the humming fish hummed. No more they can hum, for their gills are all gummed. And I'm setting them off. Oh, their future is dreary. They'll walk on their fins and get woefully weary, in search of some water that isn't so smeary.
And then I got mad. I got terribly mad. I yelled at the Lorax, "Now listen here, Dad. All you do is yap yap and say bad, bad, bad. Well, I have my rights, sir, and I'm telling you, I intend to go on doing just what I do. And for your information, you Lorax, I'm figuring on biggering and biggering and biggering and biggering, turning more truffula trees into thneeds, which everyone needs." And at that very moment, we heard a loud whack. From outside the fields came a sickening smack of an axe on a tree. Then we heard the tree fall, the very last truffula tree of them all.
I'm gonna stop there
No
because
more
that's actually the second pause. And while I'm going back to the presentation, what is the conflict of the story? So what's the conflict between the two characters that's going on?
The using or destroying of the trees, the forest.
And you may have some other answers as well, depending on the group of kids that you are with. So at this time, you can stop and go to the movie, or you can continue and finish up the actual book if you want to read this, finish up the story. And then when you go to the movie, you would actually pause in those places that we paused in the story, just to make sure that that everybody is just making that connection and bringing that piece along with them, checking for understanding as well. And then when the movie is over, you have the movie question of how was the conflict resolved? And then what would you do to change the outcome? Okay, and this could be done in an oral way. You can have kids just talk about it, whether they do it in a classroom or you have them in small groups, or you can actually have them write it out as well. Okay, any questions about the Lorax? I actually have this lesson written up, and I actually shared it on the email that I sent out on Monday.
Teresa, I don't mean to put you on the spot, because I know you said that you were kind of geared up for third grade and above, but can you maybe give a quick example of how you might do a similar with under third grade?
Yes, actually this particular one you can do with K through second grade. It's just a matter of changing your questions. You can do this, but you would have to change up how the questions that you ask. You may have to do more of a guided questioning. You'll just basically have to do the questions that are on their skill level. So instead of using the word conflict, I may say problem. Okay. Who could the Lorax represent? Who do you think the Lorax is? I mean, like I said, depending on the group of kids that you work with, you're changing up the question. Okay. Any questions on the Lorax one? And this actually has been done, this activity has been done with K through 5th grade. And the kids actually really liked it. Okay. Now moving on to the other compare and contrast activity. So this again is a book to movie, How the Grinch Stole Christmas. So you would read the book and then you would compare the movie. And I have the Jim Carrey movie here because this movie actually provides the backstory of how the Grinch became the Grinch, okay? Which is a big difference from the actual original Dr. Seuss story. And then now we have the movie that's actually providing us that information. There's questions and you can come up with your own questions. It does not have to be these particular questions. So the questions that you can ask is like, who are the main characters of the story? And then when you watch the movie, the question that you can ask for the movie is, how did the Grinch become the Grinch? So that kids actually have to pay attention to that piece. And then what is the significance of the Whoville Christmas tree? And then kind of get into that discussion of the significance of the Christmas tree. Okay. And then the third activity that's on this sheet is, it's a character to character activity. There's really no particular questions for this one. It's just really taking a Venn diagram. It doesn't matter what type of Venn diagram you have. And then you're actually comparing the characters to characters. So I have Harry Potter and Percy Jackson, Hermione to Annabelle. And if you are a Harry Potter person, you know Harry Potter and Hermione are together, and then Percy Jackson and Annabelle are together. And then you can even throw in other ones like Junie Jones and Horrible Henry. And you're really comparing the character traits. Some of them are heroes, so the style of heroism. There's situations that they get in, like Junie Jones and Horrible Henry, they get themselves in some situations. based on their perspective at the age level that they are at. You could talk about how do their villains, you know, the Harry Potter and Percy Jackson, they have different villains. There are some similarities, but there's differences. So just really looking at the characters when you're doing like a character-to-character activity. Any questions on these three right here? Okay. Well, I was going to do a breakout session, but since there's just a few people in the room, we can just go ahead and do that here. The connection activity, so I'm a huge advocate in providing connection activities for what we do in literacy. So if you're reading a book, providing an activity that's going to connect the book to our kids' world. Building that bridge so that it doesn't just look like, oh, we just read, that's it, read, you know, it's just reading. So with these three activities here, looking at these three activities, what are some connection activities that we can pull from these stories? Okay, and these connection activities can either be in the form of again, activities. Notice the keyword activities. You could do it in a field trip. You can utilize your community partners, but what are some things that you could pull out and build that connection with? I'll give you a couple of minutes to kind of go through those, look through and come up with some activities. But if you don't mind, I'm going to give you one for the Lorax. As we know, the Lorax is dealing with the forest and they're cutting down to the forest. We can actually do this activity around Earth Day. You know, recycle, reuse. I always forget the other R, but we could do this around Earth Day, have them do some planting around our program, or we plant a flower. That's an activity you could do. Excuse me. Okay, anybody care to share? I hate to pick on you, Tara and Andrea, but you're the only two that's actually in the room besides Vic and Crystal.
That's what I figured, and I hate to be the only one who talks. So
no, you're fine.
With the Lorax, I was thinking we do partner up with our neighborhood Buchanan County Conservation Board. And so we do bring them in right around Earth Day, like you said, and we've learned how to make paper from the trees. We've also done the recycling unit. They bring in and show us how they sort recycling when it goes to the actual big recycling center, and actually just getting out to the actual Fontana Nature Center and seeing the trees and how they interact and do things, how they're needed for us is one thing that we do. We are also a Tree City USA, so we could go and see the importance of the trees within the community.
Mm-hmm.
Would
nice.
be one thing. So do you want me to do my Grinch?
Yes, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. Okay. Yep.
And with the Grinch, we do have a big celebration the first weekend of December called Old Time Christmas. And we actually have a contest where votes are food being donated to the food bank. And then the winner who gets the most food is crowned the Grinch for the next year. So, you know, it's a good opportunity for us to teach the kids how we're changing the Grinch's heart. When the candidates are announced, the Grinches talk about how mean they are, blah, blah, blah. But then by getting these votes, it's making their hearts kinder. So we've done things such as put up a Grinch, and every time someone's donated something, put up a red heart, or every time in a classroom you do something nice, you put up a red heart to show what's a kindness activity you can do. And then we just show how we can do kindness among our own community, maybe write cards to the local senior citizens or people who are in the hospital, examples like that, just to get kindness out and about.
Yes. Okay. Oh, wow. Yes. Doing some things. Yes.
Yeah, we are. Those are some great activities already. So
yes, exactly.
And a lot of times for comparing the characters, right now is a good time to compare between the two sports of wrestling and basketball, because we have a lot of kids who favor one over the other. So we talk about the different characteristics of what does it take to be a basketball player? What does it take to be a wrestler? Okay, these are things that are different, but here's what you both have to have. You both have to have the determination. You both have to practice. You both, you know, so that trying to show them that one sport isn't necessarily better than the other, but here's some differences, but here's some ways that you guys are alike, even though it's different. So.
Okay. Thank you for sharing. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. How about you, Andrea? How would this work in your program?
Oh, sorry, my internet doesn't want to stay connected. That's why I keep using it. I was thinking about the one with the Grinch, that it would be a good idea for the students to make cards or pictures or something like that and deliver to our local, we have a couple local elderly, not sure what you call them, little homes in town in Preston here. You know, there's a couple over in Miles that I thought that may be something fun to do. We have a field trip coming up next week actually to Preston. So maybe we can swing by and do that when we're out and about. I don't know what they've done in the past at the school because I don't work at the elementary school for other things, but that's kind of where I was leaning.
Okay, yeah. Like I said, any activity that we could do to make that connection. And it's going to be different for each program, depending on, like I said, the kids that you service and the communities that you're in. I can even, the character to character one, you can also do where they dress up as the character. And they have to be in that trait or that character trait the time that they're at programming. Again, back to the Lorax, I like the Lorax. The Lorax, if you have a community garden, you know, you're going out and helping with the community garden. In the spring, you go out and help get the weeds out and get it ready. In the summer, well, not in the summer, but then in the fall, you're coming back and helping it get it ready for the winter. I mean, there's all sorts of things you could do. And if you have summer programming, they can help in the summer. There's just like all different activities that you can do. It's just really sitting down and looking at, okay, what can we do? What do we have access to? And again, I am just a huge, huge fan of connection activities, because that's where you're going to sell your activities, folks. That's where you're going to grab in your kids' interest, is when you're incorporating those connections, because then they're going to want to do more. Okay. Any
Teresa,
questions?
Can I
Yes,
jump in for just a moment? I saw a really cool socially emotional learning activity once based on the Grinch, where they approached it from the Grinch had this kind of like aha moment or this learning moment where he decided that he wanted to change. So this particular activity, they gave the students like a giant poster paper, and they were able to draw or paint or pencil or whatever, something that they wanted to change about themselves. And then they talked about it. And I just thought it was very powerful because, some kids kind of went with the whole, like, I wish I was nicer to my brother or sister type of angle, and then other kids really kind of opened the door into maybe some deeper things. And while this was all happening, you could tell that the staff was like, okay, so obviously something else is going on with this kiddo. We need to be sure that we're doing that follow-up to get them the support they need.
Right. Oh, that's a nice activity. Yeah.
Have you guys heard of Project Jack? Okay, so I was reading about it on Facebook last night, and then one of our teachers actually participated. It is a kind of a giving donation project that's geared towards 4th and 5th graders, I believe. It has been taken up by the Iowa Realty Company. So our local realtor had posted about it last night. So I don't know if maybe it could be funded into one of these programs or if it has to be a regular classroom. But what is happened then is you decide on some way to make an impact in your community, and you're given a stipend of, I believe, like $250, and you find a way to make a positive impact in your community. They've given, socks to the homeless. They've done the tie blankets and given out. They've bought flowers and gave them to all the hospital workers and different things. It was all done in memory of a little boy named Jack. And so this is what they've gone on. But I'm wondering if it could be reached out to more projects instead of just regular classrooms.
Yes, and that's
yeah,
and that's why I had folks do this, because even though, I mean, you're talking about like the school, but everybody can do this. This is like activities that anybody can participate in, and you could go. I mean, you can. The sky's the limit.
I was wondering if it could be more additional funding for people's programs, if they could do something, because that would be like with the Grinch giving, growing the giving heart, doing the random acts of kindness, is why I threw that out there. So
that would actually be a Vic question, because it sounds like you're asking if there would be funding coming from 21st Century.
Could you use it for something like that, to be able to do some random acts of kindness things, Vic?
Or Crystal?
Hold on, I had to unmute. No, not directly. That's where your partner contributions can work. The money for 21st Century has to be used strictly on the students.
Okay, that's what I wondered. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, but again, just to clarify, there's nothing preventing a site from seeking additional partnerships and or dollars to support like a specific project like that.
Okay, thanks for the clarity.
Thank you. All right. If anybody doesn't have any more questions, we can continue to move on. Does anybody need to take a break? Because if not, we can just continue. Okay, we'll continue. So the next couple of activities that are actually left. So the next two are about sight words, is in regards to sight words practice activities. So in this particular activity, you would either be using the Dolch words or you'll be using Fry. And I just learned about Fry not too long ago, which I'm surprised. I wish I would have learned about him a long time ago. But Fry, he's like, his word list goes up to 1,000 words. It's 1,000 common words that you will see when you're reading. So his list is all the way up to, I mean, he really doesn't have a grade on his list, but when I looked at the words, you're literally looking pretty much up into high school with some of the words that are on his list. So the Dolch, the way he has his list set up, it's like first grade, second grade, third grade, and then he has the nouns. And then Fry, his list is set up where it's like the first 100, second 100, third 100, and so forth and so on. Okay. So what you would do is with this particular activity is that you would get, you can either use a passage, you can use a story, to a couple of pages out of a book. You determine on what you want to do. You will give your kids a list of words, and their job is to find those words in the reading that you provide to them. Okay, just to get practice. So they're just going through and identifying those sight words. That's all this is just to get practice. Okay, which means that they also have to read what they have in front of them. Okay, this is really like a self-explanatory, it's really cut and dry activity. Any questions on this one? And it could be any reading passage, any reading materials, as long as it fits the grade that you are doing this for. Okay. The next activity, I did sight words as well as spelling list. Not quite sure if people are doing spelling lists. I know back when I was growing up, that was the big thing, was spelling lists. I don't know if they still do spelling lists now, but what you would do is that you would actually take a person's spelling list, or you would do the sight words, and I would use the Fry sight words for this particular one, just because there's a little bit more words. The way that he has it set up, it just, like I said, his word expands more than the Dolch words. So then you would make a list of 10 to 20 words. Staff decides. You do this before you give out this activities. And then here's some examples. Like I said, Fry does like the third 100, the sixth 100. So and they're in alphabetical order, so it makes it easy as well. So then you would provide the list. And then over on the right-hand side, there's several different activities that they could do with this list. So the first activity they could do is, of course, story writing. They could do it Dr. Seuss style, and we know what Dr. Seuss, he does a lot of rhyming with his words. Or you can have some type of theme. So you can say, well, today we're gonna write a mystery story, and you need to use these words in your story. Or, okay, we're gonna do sci-fi. You need to use your words, use these words in the story. Okay. The second activity that is there, practice spelling words again, or they could practice the sight words using the bananagrams or letter tiles. And you want them to do it in a grid form. That way everybody can use the tiles, just helps that way. And they just use it in a grid form, and they start with one word and then work off that word and go to the next word and so forth and so on. And then the last activity on there is, again, sight word vocabulary bingo. So you would have them, you would have a bingo card, a blank bingo card, give them the word list, have them place the words wherever they want on that bingo card, and then staff will say a definition or give maybe some clues to what the word is, and then they have to identify the word. That's why this is kind of like a 3rd through 12th grade activity. So the kids would have to identify the word that the definition was given to. Okay. And again, you can give clues, you can give a definition, and then whoever gets your bingo, of course, wins, or however you play your bingo. Any questions on this particular activity? Any questions on these particular activities? So these are ways that you can use sight words or even kids' spelling list. Okay. Oops. Questions? And then the last activities that I will provide for you today, that I have for today, the reading bingo and the reading tic-tac-toe. These actually were very popular last year. These took became very popular over the pandemic. I mean, you've seen these all over the place. They're very self-explanatory. They're very tailored. You can tailor these. You can either do it at a classroom, you could do your whole program. You can do, if you want to do one where families are involved, you could do one as well. I thought I would bring these back. Like I said, you can tailor them to however you want them, and kids can go to town with them. They're very easy to implement activities. The reading bingo and the reading tic-tac-toe. And these are just examples. Tara and Andrea, have you guys used these before, the reading bingo and tic-tac-toe?
Yes, and we have several teachers in our building who still use them from the actual classroom. We haven't with our after school program, but definitely in the classrooms.
Okay. And again, you could tailor it to the after school program as well. That's the wonderful thing about these, is that they can be tailored. How about you, Andrea?
We have not used these for the after school program, but it's given me some really good ideas. So, yeah.
And the wonderful thing about this is that you don't have to teach this because it's already being used. It's being used in the classrooms. So they already know. You can give this to them, maybe give them some instruction on how you are wanting it to be used within your program, and let them have at it.
And they're all about getting some kind of prize at the end. So,
oh yeah,
that's the big part. Get those prizes.
Yeah, exactly. All about the prizes. And on the reading bingo, you could do a complete blackout and just, so it'll take a while for them to get that prize, but yes, all about the prizes. Any questions on what was covered today? Want to go over anything? Questions, clarity on anything? Thoughts, ideas?
My thoughts just went to how much what we're doing in the regular classrooms could so easily be transferred over to the after school programs that we hadn't even thought about. Like when you were talking about the fry words and the Dolch words, we do a lot of those activities in our word work centers in the classrooms, and very easily we could just put that into the after school program. And we haven't done it. So very easy concepts, like you said, they won't take much time, but it's such a, I don't know, benefit to the kids that if we were to do more of these things as well, it would definitely benefit our kiddos in the end.
And the beauty of that too is that a well-run 21st century program will actually align with your school day. but also incorporate those fun activities so it doesn't feel like school day.
Right.
Exactly. And it would be a great way to tie in with the regular classroom teachers too. You know, and make that connection between the two.
And actually, when I do these activities, the activities that I do bring to you have been done in the classroom. And I'm just actually modifying them so that they can fit the after-school program, fit into an after-school program. So yeah, so you have the reading bingo, tic-tac-toe. We went over like the sight words. And there's so many things that you could do with sight words as well, or spelling list if kids do spelling list. That was one of the reasons, and Fry too. One of the reasons why I like Fry is because if they're not doing spelling lists, a lot of the words that I was seeing on the Fry's list would be constituted as spelling if kids were having spelling list. Back to that, just kind of the compare and contrast. Any other questions or thoughts? Because that actually is going to conclude for today. Our workshop for today. The next workshop that we actually have will be January 27th. Yes, there's a lot of time in between. The reason is because there are things going on everybody's end. Folks, we got winter break coming up. You get back from that, have kids get back into routine. I know that there's things going on our side as well. So it's just a matter of allowing people time to kind of get back into the groove of things, and then we will resume back the end of January. Be looking out for an email from either me or Crystal and letting you know when session 2 and session 3s are posted so that you can get in there and utilize those sessions. Anything else that I need to put out there, Crystal?
I don't think so. Again, Teresa sent you the supporting materials. The recordings will be made available soon. Logistically, ladies, is there anything that I can be of service to you for? Or do you have any other questions for Teresa?
I think I'm good. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, Tara. Andrea, anything?
Not that I can think of right now, but thank you.
At any time from now until our next session, if you need anything, need to just run, like you have an idea and you need some assistance with it, or you want somebody just to kind of listen, feel free to email me and we can get an appointment together and we can get online or do whatever to get that solved.
Yeah. Sounds great.
Right. Thank you. Okay, well, if there are no other questions, I think I'll go ahead and end the recording. So let me do that.